letter. I wish that letter was never written. That letter was tragically sad and downright pathetic. And it pains me to see that man still begging to be in a league that he called racist and compared to a plantation. And I hate that he can never speak for himself. He always got somebody else speaking for him or putting out his messaging for him. That's so whack to me.
January 1st will mark 7 years that Colin Kaepernick hasn't been in the league. And in the year 2023, on opening day, just a few weeks ago, the NFL started 14 black quarterbacks. 7 of the top 11 paid quarterbacks in the National Football League are black. Those owners are going to use that as an excuse to point to, ain't about racism. We don't want to hear that. And no matter how wrong they may be, the public evidently sides with them because the ratings have gone where, fellas? The money has gone where, fellas?
All right, folks, we got to talk today about what is perhaps the funniest and most pathetic news story of this entire week, which is that Colin Kaepernick, yes, that same Colin Kaepernick who became nationally despised for kneeling for the national anthem in order to protest on behalf of Black Lives Matter, is now trying to make a return to the NFL. And recently, this week, he wrote a 2-page letter begging, and when I say begging, I mean begging, essentially pleading with the New York Jets to give him a chance to come back to the league. And just to give you an idea of that, here's a short excerpt from that letter saying, worst case scenario, you see what I have to offer and you're not that impressed. Best case scenario, you realize you have a real weapon at your disposal in the event you ever need to use it. So to paraphrase that, he is essentially begging on his knees, please at least put me on the scout team, at least make me a third string quarterback. I'll do anything. To which you may say, okay, Vince, you may not like him, you may not agree with his politics, but what is the issue with that? He's trying to get his life back on track. He's trying to revive his football career. What's the problem? Well, the problem is that just a few years ago, in the course of trying to advocate for all his left-wing black power nonsense, Colin Kaepernick very explicitly compared the NFL and the NFL draft to slavery. So people may have forgotten about this. Check out this video. Here he is explaining how playing in the NFL and making millions of dollars, all optionally and consensually, obviously, is akin to being a slave. All right. And as we look at him now begging to come back to the NFL and compare this with him just a couple of years ago saying that being in the NFL is like slavery, Colin Kaepernick, in his own words, according to his own logic, wants to be a slave again, wants to come back to the plantation, and the whole story is ridiculous. Here he is.
Potential players are paraded out in front of scouts, coaches, and owners who measure their physical talent and on-field abilities.
Okay, so I can't play a lot more than that because the music in the background is copyrighted, but you basically get the idea he was arguing here. And in retrospect, it still is just as ridiculous now as it was back then. I understand partially the point he's trying to make, which is, hey, in the NFL Combine, they measure your weight, your stats, your strength, all this different stuff. The big difference, though, Colin, between that and slavery is, first of all, slavery was not consensual. Being in the NFL is a choice. And furthermore, being in the NFL is worth millions and millions of dollars here. So, there's kind of a pretty fundamental difference there. But still, regardless, right? If you think the NFL is slavery, okay, fine. You're an idiot, but fine. Now here he is, a few years later, begging to come back to the NFL. And this move is so desperate and so clout chasing and just sad and pathetic at this point that even a lot of the people on the left, I should say, in the black community who defended Colin Kaepernick when we conservatives were calling him all sorts of names and criticizing what he did, a lot of his defenders have now even turned on him saying, this is just clown behavior. How can you because it really is indefensible. How can you call the NFL slavery and then beg to come back to the NFL? Okay, so here is Charlemagne, quote unquote, the god. He's not a god. He's a fool in many regards, but he is right. Okay, this is the guy who hosts the Breakfast Club. Big time kind of black power sort of left wing character here. And listen to him. Here he is ripping Colin Kaepernick for just being a fool. Take a listen.
I wish that letter was never written. That letter was tragically sad and downright pathetic.
So he calls Colin Kaepernick and his letter tragically sad and downright pathetic. You love to see it, right? You love to see the infighting here. And it's understandable because I understand there's no angle to which any of Colin Kaepernick's defenders can justify this because it's so straightforward. You were saying the NFL is slavery, and then now you want to come back. It's tomfoolery, truly. All right, take a listen.
Colin Kaepernick has let his setback become his identity, and I hate that for him. God exalted Colin Kaepernick into a position of leadership in regards to activism, and it pains me to see that man still begging to be in a league that he called racist and compared to a plantation. And I hate that he can never speak for himself. He always got somebody else speaking for him or putting out his messaging for him. That's so whack to me. I wish Colin the best in all his endeavors, but this begging, these same people you called racist for an opportunity is pitiful.
I just don't like it.
Pitiful.
I'd rather him go to, what's the other league?
I think what he fundamentally is a clout chaser. Okay, and he'll attack anyone. He'll throw anyone under the bus. He'll commit any degree of inconsistency just to chase that attention. You guys remember in his book, he wrote a book about a year or so ago, and actually, I think it was this year, and he threw his parents under the bus and basically called his parents racist. Why? All just to sell books, right? He made that stupid, ridiculous video comparing the NFL to slavery. Why? Because it would garner attention. He would get attention for it. It would keep him relevant. Same thing with a Nike ad that got him paid. And I would argue same thing here, which is that he is just grifting anything he can to stay relevant in the national spotlight. Is probably the way I see it, but
boxed him out. They don't want him in the league. Like, that's clear.
Very clear. And I asked earlier in the room, like, how good of a football player was he? Because the way that they just threw him out after all that, you would think that he wasn't good. But
he was a good player.
I heard he was
good.
It
don't even matter.
He was a good player.
Well, he was good at his peak, but by the time he was kneeling, he was already benched, and he basically got ran out of the league because in the end, he really wasn't that good. And on top of that, here's the thing, because I know a lot of people made the argument at the time, well, he was good enough to be a backup. He was good enough to be third string, perhaps. But when you're that much of a liability, when you're that self-centered and creating a distraction for the rest of the team, and you're not even good, you're not even the starting quarterback, the leader of the team, what team's going to want that? Anyways, that's Charlemagne basically, also ripping Colin Kaepernick for this. I want to play now what Stephen A. Smith, who is a sports commentator, a black guy, obviously, who adamantly defended Colin Kaepernick for a lot of years, has to say about this. Because Stephen A. basically tears this guy a whole new a-hole, and you love to see it, okay? Take a listen to what Stephen A. says, because he has a lot of insider sports information on this, too, that just, it just crushes the entire pro-Kaepernick side. Take a listen here. But before we continue this video, let me ask you a question. Do you want to start investing your money in smart places but don't know where to start? Well, let me tell you, a place to not start are cryptos or NFTs or any of this unstable bull junk. No, you want to get started in the stable places, which is why it is a smart idea, especially in times like these, to invest in physical assets like gold, silver, and your precious metals. And our friends today over at Noble Gold Investments can help you do so. And folks, there are a lot of scam gold companies out there that sell those weird coins or whatever it is. Not at Noble Gold. Our friends at Noble Gold are proven with a 5-star rating from the Better Business Bureau and have countless 5-star ratings from regular Americans like you. So be sure to go check them out. They will walk you through the process. It costs no money, no money down, no strings attached. Just go fill out the form at vincedalegold.com or dial the number 877-646-5347. And our friends at Noble Gold, who again have a 5-star rating with the Better Business Bureau, will be in contact to inform, not sell, but to first inform you on the best ways to invest in your precious metals. So be sure to go check out our friends at vincedalegold.com.
Sadness. Because it ain't going to happen. See, we have to stop all of this noise, and we have to address it with the realness that it deserves. Colin Kaepernick, I hope I'm wrong. I'd love to see him back in the National Football League. I believe he deserves an opportunity to be back in the National Football League. I believe that he was blackballed, but where I've taken heat, and I will always take heat for this, in the end, not 2016 to 2019, but in the end, as of November 2019, when he had that tryout that the NFL organized, and he elected not to show up, and instead had that at a high school, an hour and 20 minutes away, Swagoo, Mad Dog Russo, Molly, I said on First Take the next morning, it is over.
Yeah, and so for context and for memory, after 3 years from 2016 to 2019 of Colin Kaepernick complaining that the NFL was racist and he just couldn't get a job in the NFL because the NFL was racist. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention, he also sued the NFL for civil rights abuses or a civil case or whatever it was. So he sued the NFL, he sued his former employer, and is now going back to his former employer to ask for a job. That's funny. But anyways, back here on topic of the tryout itself, the NFL, after all his yapping, says we're going to put together an organizational tryout. Every single team's going to be able to show up. We're going to have the whole NFL as an organization hold a single tryout for one player, something they've never done, just so they could pander here to Colin Kaepernick and shut him up and shut up all these claims about the NFL being racist. And how does Colin Kaepernick respond to that? Instead of showing up to the tryout, he goes to a local high school and throws the ball around with some kids or something, and it says, no, screw the NFL, they're racist, even though they set up this whole tryout for me that I didn't show up to. So total clown for that. But listen to what Stephen A. has to say about it here that's even more interesting.
Colin Kaepernick, a guy that took the team to the Super Bowl in the San Francisco 49ers. You trying to tell me Colin Kaepernick couldn't play? Of course he could play. Of course he could have been on a roster. All he had to do was show up. And he didn't show up. I personally was told at that time, if the brother showed up to the workout because of public pressure being brought down upon the league and the fact that we were all watching, he would have had to throw the football in the stands to not have a job in 2 weeks. That was a quote that I received, doggy. He would have had to throw it into the stands to not receive a job. But he didn't show up. Yep. And now we fast forward.
And let me say, I 100% believe that. Because, first of all, Colin Kaepernick, by the time of his downfall and decline, was not that good. But he easily probably could have been a third, second string quarterback in the NFL. I will say that's probably true. But even on top of that, I think Stephen A. is absolutely right. You remember the culture around all of this stuff in 2019. There was so much public pressure around this, someone would have taken him. In fact, probably multiple teams would have tried to make the offer just so that they could not be called racist. Because if you'll remember, especially back then, the woke completely dominated the culture of sports and corporate America. And that's part of where I think Colin Kaepernick's clownery back then versus trying to actually get back into the league now is a complete miscalculation on his part. Because even though the NFL still in many ways is a woke corporation, we know what has happened since the Bud Light thing. We know that conservatives now have a little bit more control. Not all of it, not even close to all of it, but we have a little bit more control, a little bit more room to make pushback nowadays than we did back then. A lot of corporations are now scared to embrace the left and the far leftists and just pander to them directly. directly anymore because of what happened to Bud Light, to Dylan Mulvaney, and a lot of that different stuff. And by the way, just one thing I will note, the last few years, ever since the NFL has distanced themselves a little bit away from Kaepernick and all that controversy, their ratings have gone up again, right? So Colin Kaepernick's window, really, and this is why he's such an idiot, his window to get back into the NFL, kind of unjustifiably, but, you know, his window to weasel his way back into the league was totally in 2019 when the NFL was scared of him. It's not like that anymore. Now everyone thinks he's a fool. Now you even have, especially after he shot himself in the own foot by comparing with the NFL to slavery, now everyone thinks he's a clown. Even his former defenders, like Charlamagne, like Stephen A. Smith, like the left-leaning black voices in sports media, think you're a clown, and there's way less attention around it now. So, again, the guy, what can we say? The guy's an idiot, but the guy deserves it. The guy does not deserve the opportunity again. Forget the football thing, although that's also maybe true. I mean, it's been a while since he's played, but from a moral perspective, okay? First of all, I'm not going to root for a guy who is a communist idiot who kneels for the national anthem. But even more than that, forget his ideology, forget the principles he believes in. He doesn't even believe in them. He's just fundamentally a snaky, dishonest person. Because if he believed the NFL was slavery, he wouldn't go back to it. And throwing your own parents under the bus, who supported you for so many years, by the way, adopted him, okay? He would have been a foster child. He would have been on the streets. He was adopted by his white parents. And just because his white parents didn't want him to have a ghetto, quote unquote, haircut, it was racist for that. The guy is a scumbag. And the guy honestly deserves all of the misfortune, from a professional standpoint that's come his way. But let's close out here from Stephen A. Smith and then call it a day.
To 2023. January 1st will mark 7 years that Colin Kaepernick hasn't been in the league.
Yep.
And in the year 2023,
and we've all forgotten, right?
On opening day, just a few weeks ago, the NFL started 14 black quarterbacks. 7 of the top 11 paid quarterbacks in the National Football League are black. Those owners are going to use that as an excuse to point to, ain't about racism. We don't want to hear that. It's about the attention.
Which the owners would probably be right about that, but,
Attention that you brought to our brand that we believe compromises the bottom line. And no matter how wrong they may be, the public evidently sides with them.
That's true.
Because the ratings have gone where, fellas?
Up.
The money has gone where, fellas? Up. Their coffers, has it dwindled? Has it diminished? Has it shrunk? No. Just like I told y'all in November of 2019, I said when he didn't show up for that workout, it's over. And that's where we are today. I hope I'm wrong.
Yep. I mean, he basically sums it up. Now, obviously, I disagree with Stephen A. Smith on some of his assessment, but for the most part, in terms of just analyzing it, he's completely right about that. The NFL is not going to want him back now, even though they are still a quote unquote woke corporation. Again, they've been doing fine without him. They haven't really attracted major controversy in the past few years, and business has been doing better because of it. Why would they want to change that? Why would they want to piss off maybe some conservative leaning people who have come back to watching the sport because they don't kneel for the national anthem anymore? Why would they want to do that? And by the way, even the movement to bring Colin Kaepernick, again, it's been 7 years since he left the league. He's just irrelevant at this point regardless. And again, even his supporters can't help but call him a clown because he doomed himself from ever being taken seriously as another NFL player when he compared the NFL to slavery. So in all regards, we love to see it. We love to see Colin Kaepernick getting clowned on even by his former defenders. And fundamentally, he is a fool. What else can we say? He is a fool. Bye-bye. Don't come back. And he's not coming back. which we love to see it. Anyways, with that said, folks, let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Be sure to leave a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Be sure to check out our friends over at Noble Gold Investments, and until next time, Alpha Moves only. God bless. Have a very good day and peace.